Sakya Pandita was in a way, the emblematic master of Sakya, just as Milarepa was the emblematic master of the great Kajupa tradition. He was born in 1040 in southern Tibet, and as a young man, he had the opportunity to meet different teachers. But of course, tragedy had struck his family when he was still a child, and his widowed mother and his sister and he were thrown into kind of servitude and poverty in the hands of unscrupulous relatives, as it's well detailed in his different biographies. But his mother did manage to ensure that he had some kind of Dharma education, primarily from masters of the Nyingma school. Unfortunately, his mother wanted his education in some ways to equip him with the skills, the magical skills, to be able to wreak revenge on those who'd harmed her and her family. So, though Milarepa did encounter the authentic Nyingma Dharma to a certain extent as a very young man, it was subverted to this aim. And he became very accomplished in the practice of wrathful, destructive magic, eventually, in fact, bringing about the death of a number of his family's enemies. So having succeeded in his wrathful magic, then Milarepa was brought up short. He suddenly realised the enormity of what he'd done, bringing about the destruction of human life. So this brought about enormous turning around in his life, a kind of great renunciation. And that renunciation was one of astonishing fervour, so that he now knew that he had to practice the authentic, pure Dharma, which would purify his sins, his negativities, which otherwise would bring about the consequence of rebirth in the lower realms. He knew how to purify them, let alone embark upon the path to liberation. So he set out to look for more Dharma teachings, this time Dharma teachings that would lead him on this correct path. First he met, again, teachers from the Nyingma school, and although the Nyingma teachings he was given were very profound, they didn't have the kind of karmic connection. He didn't have the karmic connection with them at that time. So he found his way to one of the great, the famous figures in South Tibetan Buddhism at that time, which was the Marpa, the translator, who, like the masters from the emerging Sakya school, had decided, was part of the movement of a new wave of tantras, the Sama tantras from India to Tibet. He'd actually spent 2 major visits, 3 some say, 2 major visits in India with gurus like Milarepa and Milarepa and so on. So Marpa was enormously well equipped with tantric teachings and of course mastery through meditation of those tantric teachings. Milarepa recognized him immediately as his destined guru and became his apprentice, an apprenticeship that was not without many difficulties, because Marpa realized that Milarepa needed very strong purification in order to be able to escape from the kind of burden, the dead weight of his sins. And so Milarepa's apprenticeship with Marpa is a very colourful and dramatic one. Finally, he received the necessary full transmission of the teachings, of the tantric teachings that he sought from Marpa, particularly Vajrayogini and the completion stages known as the 6 doctrines of Milarepa, and Mahamudra itself, the Great Seal. So then he spent many, many years in solitary meditation in the Himalayan region, sometimes the Tibetan side, sometimes the Nepalese side, until unmistakable realization arose in him. And then gradually his students began to gather around him in his mountain hermitages. Milarepa had never become a monk, of course. He was a yogi, like his Guru Marpa himself was a married yogi. Milarepa didn't marry, but he did not become a monk. So his initial disciples were all yogis like himself. But from these disciples, 2 emerged as most important. Rechungpa, the little cotton-clad one, named like his master after the white cotton robe they wore, Mila the cotton-clad, Milarepa, Rechumpa, the little Repa, the little cotton-clad one, and then the greatest of all, Gampopa, who would inherit the full transmission of Milarepa's teachings and marry them together with the Kadampa, scholarly Mahayana teachings that he had received earlier in his stay in Kadampa monasteries. So Richumba and Gampopa were the main students of Milarepa, but Gampopa carried on the in a way organising and making out of Milarepa's yogic lineage this wonderful great school, the Kajupa that we know today.